That's why I think history is such an amazing thing, is because history is dynamic. Not that history has changed, but our view on history, as we learn more about what actually happened, it changes our perspective.
Welcome to In the Parks, an Indiana State Parks podcast. I'm Allison Martin, and I'm excited to tell the stories of these amazing places in the Hoosier State. Our parks show off the best of Indiana: bald eagles and bison, fire towers and caves, ancient fossils and Native American mounds, waterfalls and sand dunes. But there's so much more to these parks, and it's time to go in-depth to really know the stories and discover what makes each destination unique and valuable as part of Indiana. On In the Parks, you'll learn about the people, legends, and places that formed Indiana's state parks in the past and who is writing the story today. In this episode, we're headed to Mounds State Park. Mounds is located in Anderson, about 40 minutes northeast of Indianapolis. It was Indiana's 9th state park, joining the family in October of 1930. I visited Mounds several times, and I've always really enjoyed it. The trails are accessible, some are even paved, and in general, they're a great place for people who are maybe a little less inclined to tackle rugged trails, because most of them are wide and flat, although you'll find a few hills and rocky gravel. DINO, which stands for Do Indiana Off-Road, is a trail running and mountain biking group. They host trail runs here. If you're looking to try out trail running, this would be a perfect park to do it. There are 6 trails that easily connect and are anywhere from a half mile to 2.5 miles long. There's camping, a fantastic nature center, tons of green space for outdoor activities, and a native flower garden. But the real reason this park is here has nothing to do with any of these amazing features. It all goes back to the Mounds, the Bronnenberg family, and the connections we make. First, mounds are a type of earthwork, a man-made structure intentionally created by layering clay, sand, gravel, and soil. You can find ancient mounds all over the world, and they're thousands of years old. The mounds at the park have been around for over 2,000 years. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start with the Bronnenbergs and how they connect to the past. I got to tour their house with Mounds interpretive naturalist Kelly Morgan. Every state park has an interpretive naturalist. Their job is to help visitors make connections with the park by explaining the history and nature of each place.
My name is Kelly Morgan. I am the interpretive naturalist at Mounds State Park, and I have been here for 9 years. I hold a master's degree in North American archaeology, and I actually came from the museum world. And I had the opportunity to join Falls of the Ohio State Park as they were redoing their interpretive center. And so I joined state parks then. I worked at Falls for 4 years. And then when Mounds State Park came open, again, it's my training, it's my passion. So I reached out and said I would love to work here at Mounds. And the rest is kind of history.
The Bronnenberg family is the reason we have Mounds State Park today. Kelly explains how they got to this part of Indiana.
You are now standing within the Bronnenberg home. This family moved here in 1821, and this was not their original home. Actually, Frederick Sr., so Fred Bronnenberg Sr., and his wife, they came here on an ox cart with their 8 children. And for some reason, they stopped here. When the Bronnenbergs stopped, they were about 2.5 miles upriver from us in Chesterfield, Indiana. But one of his sons, Frederick Jr., when he became an adult, decided that he was going to move away from the main homestead. So he built this home that we're standing in early 1850s. And he lived here with his family. And then his oldest son, Ransom, later in time, lived in this property, and so on and so forth. And from the 1850s through 1929. And that is when the family left to help create Mounds State Park.
More important than anything else the Bronnenbergs did for the community, and there were a lot of things they did, it was their protection of the mounds that was their most significant contribution.
He and his family also made a commitment, which is something very unusual for Europeans at the time, is that they committed not to disturb or destroy the earthworks, and they actually did protect them. In fact, the front page of the Anderson Herald in the late 1800s, there was a newspaper article about the Bronnenberg family foiling lamplight excavations with shotguns.
They were very committed to protect this area.
Very committed.
So how did they know what it was? Like, clearly they understood it was significant. How did they know how significant?
Archaeological information here in the Americas has been known about ever since Europeans arrived. In fact, in 1540, when Hernando de Soto, one of the first Spanish guys that kind of made it into the interior of North America, was documenting earthwork sites.
Okay.
So we've known about this, and we've actually known about Anderson Mounds since the late 1700s, where the Northwest Territory governor was writing about them. So when the Bronnenberg family arrived here, I'm not 100% sure exactly what they knew. But what they did do is, because of a passion of theirs, and later in history, there's another interesting corner of history that they tucked themselves into, which they became some of the founding members of the American Spiritualist camp, which is now in Camp Chesterfield. The American Spiritualists, one of their core beliefs is that they are able to communicate with people who have passed into spirit. And so I always like to think about, what did they see here that made them so passionate about preserving these amazing earthworks?
Right. So they had not only philosophical reasons and potentially spiritual reasons for why they realized that this land was so significant.
Yes, I would say so.
Okay, we are 100% coming back to the American Spiritualist camp detail because it is fascinating. But let's recap. The Bronnenbergs understood the mounds were something special historically and spiritually. They maintained a connection to the land, protecting the mounds for decades. And they understood our connections to the past should be preserved. When it finally came time for the land to be sold, they knew it should be a state park. Over the years, the family has donated personal items to the park as well to keep history alive.
The family have donated a few items back to the park. One is a family Bible, which you will see in our parlor. Another is going to be a secretariat. Here in our parlor, we have behind a plexiglass case a small book, and that is one of the family Bibles that very likely originated here in this home.
Kelly told me the Bronnenberg family initially were Quakers when they came to the area, but later were founding members of the American Spiritualist movement. The Indiana hub of the movement was in Chesterfield in the 1880s. It seems the Bronnenbergs sought a more direct connection with the supernatural, and spiritualism appealed to them. There's even a room in the house the park thinks was used for practicing their beliefs. Kelly explains why they think that. Where are we standing now?
So this is a uppermost room of the Bronnenberg home. And when I first arrived here, this space was being interpreted as a domestic space. Now, if you know anything about American Quakers, they did not believe in employing indentured servitude, enslaved peoples. Then all of the census records never showed a domestic or helping hand. So as we were doing some research, I also worked very closely with Ball State and public history departments and such. One of the things that we started looking into is its connection with the American Spiritualist movement. So the American Spiritualist movement got off in the 1840s. It took off. And at one point in time in the late 1890s, they said that 1 in every 3 Americans had participated in the American Spiritualist movement in one form or another. This particular room we're standing in was a singular addition in the early 1870s. There's only one way in and one way out of this room. Now, today we have a doorway that takes you out into another bedroom, but that was not installed until after this became a state park. So the only way in was a singular staircase that emptied out directly into the office, or also known as the gentleman's parlor. And I always joke, I'm like, at no time in history was it ever appropriate for the domestic space to exit out directly into the gentleman's parlor, wink, wink, nod, nod. So we started doing some additional research, and what we did find is that there were quite a few members of the original Bronnenberg family that were founding members of the American Spiritualist camp. So as we did more and more research, we did not find one definitive document that said this was a seance room, but everything points into this particular area being a room where they would have come together for fellowship with other American spiritualists, also known as a seance space.
Yep, you heard that right. A seance room. Still not convinced? Based on the way the room was built onto the house, Kelly has more clues that lead the Parks to believe that was its purpose.
And that's actually one of the architectural language of the American Spiritualist movement, was that they had a room where they could meet that was on no other plane that existed anywhere else in the building. So this room actually sits about a foot off of any other plane in the rest of the building.
Yeah, because I can see we're several steps up from the bedroom.
Correct. And then there was generally one way in, one way out, in which case that would exit out not at the front door, so people could come and meet, not necessarily in secret, but in more of a non-flashy way. And then the room could be completely darkened. And I do have pictures, but they were called blackout shutters. And these are similar shutters to homes that you see in Chesterfield, the Camp Chesterfield, where the American Spiritualist camp still is. And so Again, we don't have one definitive document, but just about everything else points back to this being a seance space.
Of course, we don't know what actually happened in this upstairs room, but we do know the Bronnenbergs were spiritualists, and their desire to connect with the spiritual realm may be a key reason why they protected the mounds.
In a lot of the American spiritualist movement, this also kind of gives some insight as to why the Bronnenbergs protected the mounds. They believed that a lot of the spiritual guides that they could contact had Native American connections. Put the mounds with this together, we're not sure. Again, it's always the question of, I wonder what they saw here.
The Bronnenbergs knew the mounds were worth protecting, but it wasn't until the 1980s and 90s that we fully grasped the significance of the mounds and how the people who lived here 2,000 years ago used them. So we have now moved into a beautiful scenic area. We're surrounded by, is this the Great Mound?
This is the Great Mound. This is our largest earthwork on property, but we do have 10 prehistoric earthworks on our property. Great Mound is the largest. It's 360 feet across. It's 9 feet off the original ground level. It started construction in about 160 BCE or before current era. The cultures we attribute to this earthwork, we call one the Adena, and they were around from about 500 BCE to 0, and then the Hopewell culture, which are from roughly about 0 to about 500 current era.
There were many theories about why the mounds were built, especially when archaeologists saw varying layers and posts in the ground. Due to the size of the posts, they concluded it wasn't for a structure, but they couldn't tell what they indicated. All they could tell was it indicated there had been multiple phases of construction here.
And so we weren't really sure what went on until about 1988, when archaeologists were out here and they were using a new laser mapping system. And one of the things that they noticed as they were mapping is that the outer enclosure, which is the true earthwork, is that this upper earthwork has almost a serpentine top to it. Now, archaeologists forever assumed that that was just erosion, and it's been 2,000 years. I mean, surely there's erosion. But one of the things that the archaeologists discovered is that these serpentine rises and falls were much more regular than what nature would have done. Now, also archaeologists, obviously we like to work when it's light out. And so the first day of summer is a perfect day. So they were out here mapping on one of those. And one of the things they noticed as the sun was setting is that the sun appeared to set in one of the depressions in this serpentine earthwork. And if you stood in the middle and looked towards where the sun was setting, just on the other side of the rim is another earthwork. It seems to be tracking the summer solstice. So now as a scientist, we're like, okay, what's the opposite of summer? Winter. And sure enough, from the center of the earthwork, where the sun sets on the first day of winter, there's a depression, and about another 100 feet out into the woods is another earthwork. Now it's all of a sudden, we're standing inside of a giant calendar.
That's incredible.
Yes.
And to think that over 2,000 years ago, people were figuring out how to track time. I feel like that's such a modern day, like, ego thing that we think we are the only ones who understand time and how things work. And I almost like discount the intelligence of ancient civilizations, and things like this are just such a wake up call that we are not the smartest ones around.
Right.
Over 2,000 years ago, a group of people constructed a massive calendar to track time and seasons. Half the time right now, I forget what day of the week it is. But that isn't the only connection the Adena and Hopewell cultures made with the sky.
Only half of the earthwork is involved in the solstice tracking. So it's basically the southern half. But the northern half, as you can see, still has some nice rolls and dips. And so wonder what's going on over there. And we discovered that roughly 52 different star constellations line up directly with some of the rises and dips in the outer earthwork. We have a small earthwork that most people walk right by. It's actually on the eastern half of the Great Mound, and it's very small. But that one didn't line up with the sun. That one lines up with a very bright star. In fact, it's the 18th brightest thing in the sky, with sun being number 1. It's a star called Fulmihot. It's in the southern Pisces constellation. And as it rises in the late fall, it's tracked by the earthwork and the Great Mound. And then again, as you track it right out, there is the small earthwork. So we know they were looking at stars just as much as they were looking at the sun.
Kelly explained that while some earthworks or mounds are used for burial purposes, not all of them are. The Great Mound was used for ceremonial purposes. The only burial that was discovered in this earthwork was excavated in 1968, but those burials happened about 300 years after the mounds were built. I also asked Kelly how the park connects with and honors their tribal partners today.
We look at our tribal partners that are federally recognized are the Miami Nation of Oklahoma. This was their heartland. We have the Pikagan Band of the Potawatomi. We have the Shawnee. And the Shawnee claim direct descendancy from the mound building cultures. We have an event here every year called Summer Solstice Celebration, and members of the Miami people come and they drum the sun down. They talk about the importance of this location to their culture and how their culture is still, again, around and thriving. They're reviving their language. They have effort out through Miami University to teach their young people their culture, which, as we all know, has a very difficult past. When you come to this location, these are like churches. These are places of worship to our Indigenous partners. And so we do ask for people to respect the fact that of that reality, but also to understand that these things are 2,000 years old. And so to please not walk on the earthworks. We ask for people to come with respect, to treat with respect, and to leave with wonderful stories, memories, and to spread that respect.
As Kelly and I talked, I was struck with a couple ideas. First, how much humility we need to bring when we think about history. We can't truly understand how people lived 200 or 2,000 years ago. So we need to approach the past with care and be willing to adapt with new information. Kelly, of course, agreed.
That's why I think history is such an amazing thing, is because I say history is dynamic, not that history has changed, but our view on history, as we learn more about what actually happened, it changes our perspective. So again, you know, these very cool earthworks that have been sitting here for thousands of years and people didn't know what they were about or what made them, to now we know that they were celestial observatories, they were tracking time, they were ceremonial locations, they were part of a much broader culture that encompassed Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Northern Kentucky. And later, the Hopewell people were all over the eastern half of the United States. So this was not a small, isolated culture. These were people that were mobile, but very, very connected.
The second idea that stood out to me was how much we actually have in common with all the generations before us. Whether you are part of the Adena or Hopewell people, lived in the Bronnenberg house, or are alive today, aren't we all seeking connection and a greater understanding of where we fit in the world?
What just is popping out to me too, and you saying that is actually there's kind of an interesting connection between what's happening here and that American spiritualist movement, because it just shows that over thousands of years, people are always trying to find a way to connect with the divine and try to figure out what their place is in a larger spiritual world. And I just think that that's a very cool thing. That just shows that we're always trying to seek out truth.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Mounds is a park that's all about the connections we make to our history, to the spiritual, and to each other. And with that history also comes an exciting present and future. I loved hearing all the ways the community in Anderson has connected with the property. It may not be Indiana's biggest state park, but it's easy to see why people love Mounds. The park recently hired a new property manager, and he's happy to be at Mounds too.
I'm Patrick Halter, and I am the property manager here at Mounds State Park. I'm new. I have been here since May. Mounds is a very culturally significant property that is super interesting and important and fun to be at. It's a much more locals park, which is great for me. I have a family, so being here, it's like you can go for a hike and have fun with the family easily, and the people in the community are great. It's a smaller park, but it packs a powerful punch. Being in such a densely populated area, we have a very productive volunteer group and a very productive friends group. So it's great to get to meet all these people and become part of a community. We are working on a 6-acre wildflower area, kind of killed off the grasses and things, or made an effort to sort of plant a new wildflower planting for pollinator species and such. So super excited about that.
Yeah.
Mounds has lots of great ideas for what to do in the future. And like Patrick mentioned, a lot of those happen because of the Friends of Mounds State Park. Their relationship with the park goes back a long way. Here's Kelly again, talking about the restoration of the Bronnenberg house.
Now, the home has had a very interesting history. So after the Bronnenbergs left in 1929, this became part of the state park property. This house became original stopping place or home for the superintendent And then later it became housing for seasonal labor. And then after that, it became the Office and Nature Center. After the Nature Center that is existing over there currently, it opened in 2003. Once that building opened, then this building became less important for a period of time until about 2006, when the Friends of Mounds State Park was established. And that group came in here and single-handedly worked to restore this home. And so everything that you see here was a benefit of their labor.
The Friends of Mounds volunteer group is still doing so much through the year to keep people engaged with the property and coming back for fun traditions. I got to talk with Ray Meyer, one of the Friends board members, and as soon as we met, I could tell he and this Friends group are a great crew.
I'm about to interview him for a podcast.
Can you believe that? They want to interview me, of all people in the park.
Good.
I'm Ray Meyer. I belong to the Friends of Mounds State Park. I'm on the board, and I'm also one of the right-hand people here that does a lot of maintenance work for them, and I also am in charge of the Nights of Lights since day one. This will be our 4th year this year. The Friends group is we raise money for Mounds State Park only. It's the Friends of Mounds State Park is the name of our group. And we raise money, and the Friends group is actually the ones that paved the blacktop all the way to the mounds. Now our next big project we're working on is replacing the playground. So all the fundraisers we have, which is only 2, is our plant sale in May, and then the Nights of Lights in December, a drive-through light show. And all the proceeds we make from that stay right here in the park so we can update the park here.
The paved path from the Nature Center past the Bronnenberg house to the Great Mound is a huge benefit for the park.
Everybody's got to be able to enjoy our state parks, even the ADA people. You know, it seems like more and more people are having strokes and can't get around as much, and they really love our parks. Especially the mid-age to the older people just want to come to a safe zone, and that's what Mounds State Park is all about, is a safe zone and lets the kids play on the playground and enjoy the atmosphere. It's nature. Nature's great.
Ray also explained what Nights of Lights is, and I'm already saving the date so I can go this December.
We close our campground down. The show is only open every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday during the month of December. And it runs from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And we light 72 campsites up. Each campsite has its own different decorations, and we make it like a little drive-through. And it's only $10 a car, and kids will hoot and holler. They stand out the sunroof, hoot and holler, roll down windows, climb out the car yelling. And we also have some walk-through nights this year. Those are going to be sponsored by Community Hospital of Anderson this year. And they're paying for anybody, the ones that come and walk on that through Community Hospital to get people in motion. So you can walk through the Nights of Lights this year on Thursday night.
If you're interested in joining the Friends group at Mounds, check them out at friendsofmounds.org. Ray explains what kind of volunteer work they do.
Work in the gardens, pull weeds, things like that, pick up trash, whatever we need to do, garlic, cut down, just different things we do, cleaning and rearranging the displays. So it's a lot of fun. You get to meet some interesting characters, and we just all laugh and joke and make the best of life.
Mounds is not the only state park with a Friends group, so if you don't live close to Mounds, check out the Friends group at the state park near you. And next, I have another great story from the park, in case you need more reasons to visit Mounds. On my first visit to Mounds, I was captivated by the story of the amusement park that used to be on the property. The Union Traction Company in Anderson was one of the state's first interurban lines. It connected Anderson to other small towns in the area, then even Indianapolis. In 1897, the company leased land from the Bronnenbergs and built an amusement park. If you take Trail 5 south past the Great Mound, you can still see concrete foundations from the waiting station that took people from downtown Anderson to the amusement park, all for 5 cents. At the park, there was a roller skating rink, carousel, boat rides, a dance hall, restaurant, a mini train, and a roller coaster called Leap the Dips. Yes, in 1911, you could ride a roller coaster. The interurban company unfortunately fell victim to the Great Depression and ended up in bankruptcy. But thankfully, Kelly explains,
The Madison County Historical Society was able to raise $75,000 to pay off the debt of the Interurban Company, who's in bankruptcy, to save this piece of property.
for those in the 1920s who weren't so excited about saving historical native earthworks and donating the land to the state, the amusement park's role connecting them to their childhood was a pretty powerful motivator.
Had it not been for dates, family reunions,
Yep.
special events. Oh yeah, I remember taking your grandma out on one of the canoes, and oh, she was so pretty, and oh, there was this beauty contest that your great Aunt Jeannie won. And so we have a
The
little
nostalgia of it is what saved it. Then.
Yes.
There's this placard by the Great Mounds with all the information and pictures about the amusement park. And I just was shocked at the picture of the roller coaster I saw there. I couldn't believe that people were actually riding this in the 1900s.
That didn't look quite so roller coastery, but that's
That is.
a real roller coaster.
Yes, Leap the Dips is, and this is actually another picture of it. This 8 is right there on the bluff line. So it's a 75-foot drop, and this was 2 stories tall. So it's a 100-foot drop. So if you're swinging around that.
In 1911.
And it's a wooden roller coaster. Have you ever ridden one of
Yes.
those? Okay.
Those are terrifying.
They're terrifying to begin with. And now you're swinging around fast around a corner that you could drop 100 feet. Yeah.
And I would imagine all they've got is a lap belt.
Barely
if
a lap
that.
belt. There is a sister roller coaster that's still in use in Altoona, Pennsylvania. And it's Leap the Dips, so it's the other one. And you can see the cars, and yeah, it's, talk about terrifying.
That's brave.
Yeah.
I found videos of Leap the Dips in Altoona, Pennsylvania. And while it only goes about 10 miles per hour, it was clearly a hit then and probably would still be pretty fun now. The plaque at Mounds has this quote from a man named Harry Leon. He said, "We hesitated to get on that because we were kind of scared of that thing. We finally did get on and ride that thing, and boy, I'll tell you, that was the biggest thrill I think we ever had." I promise you, even today, going to Mounds will still give you all the biggest thrills. A huge thank you goes to the Mounds staff and volunteers who shared their time and knowledge with me. Thank you, Kelly Morgan, Patrick Halter, and Ray Meyer. In the Parks is not officially associated with Indiana DNR, but I'm ever grateful for all the incredible work they do for our parks. Please share this podcast with your friends and give us a positive review on your favorite podcast platform. You can follow along on Instagram and Facebook at In the Parks Online for more state parks content and my recommendations for the best place to get ice cream near each park. After hiking at Mounds, head to Anderson and be sure you visit Frazier's Dairy Maid. I recommend the corn dog and soft serve twist in a cone. Thanks for listening, and I hope to see you in the parks.